Good morning, everyone. And thank you for coming to today's San Diego County Board of Supervisors meeting for February 21st. Call to order at 9:01. Can I have Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Rivas?
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Rivas. Can I have an acknowledgement certificate of posting?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Next is presentations and recognitions. Today, the board will make a presentation to recognize Judy Kane for her 20 years of service on the Behavioral Health Advisory. Supervisor Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to approve the certificate of recognition to Judy Kane for 20 years of service.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries.
Thank you.
Supervisor Patel.
It's not a payoff. Judy King, congratulations on 20 years of service to the Behavioral Health Board. Help me present this certificate of appreciation for Judy's service. And on behalf of the people of San Diego County and the Board of Supervisors, we thank you. It's a tremendous amount of dedication, and it's a very important board, and you served it with your whole heart.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anyhow, there's probably only two reasons why a person... You mean all that? I have to start over?
I'm really sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to start over. Hopefully we'll just move on from there. There's probably two reasons why a person resigns from, the board serving the county. One of them is, now it's the time of year you have to fill out the 700 form, and that is just kind of a pain in the neck. And
for sure.
And we talked about this the other day, and I'm not looking forward to filling out my 700 form either. And probably the other reason is you're getting kind of old, and it's just time to retire. And okay, I have to qualify that.
It's his birthday, not mine.
Judy is my favorite second cousin, and I've spent many a nights with her and Larry, her husband, and her kids. We've grown up together. Playing Uno and Rummy Royale, and so she knows I love her and say it in jest. And so, sorry, Richard, you're in the top 5 of second cousins. But all kidding aside, Judy, you've done so much for your community, not only on the Behavioral Health Board, but your activities in San Juan with the Native Daughters and with the mission and working with kids, we could go on. And I truly appreciate everything that you've done. You're a role model to me, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Al, for coming.
Let me just say a few words also. I just want to acknowledge publicly Judy's devotion to the Behavioral Health Board, and as I thought about Judy's departure, one of the things that crossed my mind is in county government we all get called to go to many different meetings, and I look around the room at who's at the meetings, and many people are at the meetings that are attending, and they're attending on county time or whatever agency they represent. Basically, they're paid. I'm not diminishing their involvement because they certainly could be in other places, but one of the truest levels of devotion that I think a person can devote from the community is when they come for altruistic reasons. So Judy came for 16 years. She was paid nothing to come. Came from San Juan Bautista. And she's been with me actually since day one. She was on my interview board 16 years ago. in this room. And so I really will miss Judy, and I really do sincerely appreciate her contribution to the Behavioral Health Board.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you. And it's going to be 20 years. 6 months it was.
16 and 20 for Judy.
Right. Thank you.
Now we'll go to public comment. This will be an opportunity to address the board on items of interest not appearing in the agenda. No action may be taken unless provided by Government Code Section 45954-2. Any speak?
Yes, Marty Richmond.
Good morning, Marty Richard from Hollister. Unfortunately, the news reports are that our local small businesses were hit with a spate of lawsuit threats over violations of the American Disability Act. This issue has been going on for years. The American Disability Act has a lot of very detailed requirements in it, from everything from how high the toilet paper dispenser can be to how wide the sink could be. In many cases, a small business are operating out of spaces that have been there for years, decades, many decades, and many of them don't have the expertise or the money to do it, so they're not in compliance. And unfortunately, there's a set of litigants who train people to come down. In my personal opinion, so they'll go after me for this, not to you. In my personal opinion, this is a set-up job. They train people to come down and measure everything. They come down with a tape measure in their hands, and they come down. They're trained to measure everything, and then they threaten a lawsuit, perhaps for $12,000, and they settle for $7,000 or $8,000 or $6,000. And this basically winds up, in the end, intimidating many of our small businesses. It's unfortunate. In response to this, the Senate last year in California passed a Senate bill that essentially gave small businesses an extension and talked about how they could wind up fixing things without getting sued. Most small businessmen are not familiar with that process. So they get, some of them, especially those who have language difficulties and get a threat for a lawsuit, tend to pay it off and just walk away until next time. So they come back next year and they sue you again. You can call that whatever you want. Some people would call it righteousness. Other people would call it extortion. You can call it whatever you like. I'm really concerned about it because I assure you, if once they find a little gold mine where people are not complying, they're going to send more people, or they'll come back a month later. I've tried to contact, I did contact the Chamber of Commerce, and I've contacted the city, and I hope the county will work with the city to try and set up a meeting and get an expert, not to represent these businesses, but to at least come in and tell them what their rights are under the new bill, so that they have some idea of what they can do to forestall this. I would rather see the money go into correcting the deficiencies than paying off somebody not to sue them. That's the way I see it, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else? Anyone else from the public? None? Okay. Close the public comment section and go to department heads. CEO Ray Espinosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we do have a few announcements. We have one announcement out of our RMA office. We have Brent Barnes, the director of RMA, here to give you a quick update on roads, bridges.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Very briefly, a lot of trees down in the wind, a lot more localized flooding. The most important thing I have to report, though, this morning is that we have San Felipe Road closed north of 156, between 156 and Shore Road, because of the threat to a small bridge that's up there. We actually have K-rail barrier, concrete barriers across the road so that traffic can't get through. There's some concern about heavy vehicles, buses and trucks going over that bridge and compromising it. Any questions I can answer for you?
Supervisor McCullough.
Yeah, thank you. There was, on Friday, numerous trees that fell in roadways, power lines, and so forth. Are pretty much all the roads now open throughout the county?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I can't say universally, but I believe that most of them are. I know that the crews were out both on Friday and over the weekend and even during the evenings to do clearing work.
Okay, thanks.
We have another announcement out of our Auditor Controller's Office. We have Joe Paul Gonzalez.
Good morning, Chair, Board of Supervisors. If you could bear with me just a second here. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. As part of the department reports, I have decided to, originally I wanted to talk about the CAFR, but that's not quite completed yet. So since the budget process has already started for 17-18, I thought, well, this would be an opportune time to talk about the teeter plan. And also because Supervisor Medina is new and may have already heard this, a similar presentation. Okay.
Actually,
Because I know you were attending the board meetings in the past. Yeah.
Joe, can you hold off one minute, please? It's not on the agenda. Is it an informational? And
Honestly, I'm not aware. I thought it was just a department head announcement, so I'm not 100% sure. Was this?
Well, this item was supposed to be agendized, but
I can't allow it.
it was dropped off of the agenda.
Inform the public that this item will be on the agenda, and if it's a lengthy power presentation and without public awareness of it, I just don't know. I feel comfortable with it, Joe. I need guidance from County Council on this one.
Yeah, I say we need to just pull it.
Is there a need for it to be on this agenda that would mean that the board could add it as urgency, or can it be placed on the next agenda?
No, it's not urgent at all. It's informational
let's
only.
put it on for the next agenda then.
It can be, but there's no decision that the board will be making. It's just something as a kind of a background of.
If you can make the presentation brief, then let's move on with it.
I rarely can do anything briefly.
It'd probably be better to put it on the next agenda.
We're going to wait. I'm sorry, Joe. I apologize. But we're going to have it.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
Is it possible to email that to myself?
You'd like this presentation emailed to you? Yes.
Yeah, we should mail it to the entire board, if you don't mind, and then probably post it.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Okay. Where am I escape?
We have one more announcement out of administration. We have Louis Valdez, Management Analyst 3, here to give you a quick update.
Good morning, members of the board. You will see on the agenda that you have, we experienced a technical issue with the agenda itself. At the end, you'll see a header called addendum, and the reason for that is because of a bug that existed in the Novus system. For some reason, when we dropped and dragged some of the items to rearrange those, the header got changed, and we were unable to remove it until we contacted Novus over the weekend. They were able to remove that, and it has no effect on the agenda itself or the items that you're considering. So I just wanted to point that out to you. They did update the server that's associated with our account, and we should not have that issue going forward any longer, but that was a technical issue. It was not purposely done. Okay.
Thank you.
Those are all the announcements, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Board announcements. Supervisor Rivas.
I have none, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Supervisor Munzer.
None.
Supervisor Botello.
Yes, I've been receiving calls, I'm sure my colleagues on this board have, from constituents concerned about the conditions of roads, power being out in different areas, and damage from the recent storms on private property, and what some direction as far as where they should go to for help. And I just want to note to the public that, our phones are open. Maybe we can't provide as much help as we would like, but we'll certainly go to great lengths to find out where and how we could help. So I want to encourage people to feel free to continue to call us and let us know what's going on in their neighborhoods, and we're all a community and we're here to help. I also received an email this week, and I reported at the last meeting from the Regional Council of Rural Counties, RCRC, that in the governor's proposed budget that there's a significant state cut to IHSS. And I'm not sure if Department of Health and Human Services received that email and request for the survey. And if so, I hope we get that out to RCRC as soon as possible. And if I could have a copy of that survey results, I certainly would appreciate it. Thank you.
Actually, Supervisor Botello, on that note, I was actually going to ask the staff to put an item on the agenda to discuss adopting a resolution and support of the effects that in-home support service will have to San Benito County, and also address RCRC's recommendations.
Yes, I appreciate, Mr. Chairman. It's a very, very serious issue that the smaller counties are facing.
Yeah, and on that agenda, we'll talk about how the fiscal impact it will have in our current in-home support providers in San Benito County, and let's include Jim in that discussion too. Supervisor Medina?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. And then for my report was just that, put the thing on the agenda, the in-home support services. So let's continue. Consent agenda. Supervisor Medina, do you like to pull any items?
14 and 15, please.
14 and 15. Supervisor Botello?
Nothing.
Nothing. Supervisor Munzer?
I just have a typo. I'm doing my best imitation of Supervisor
I love it.
Barrier still. Just a typo on item 20.
Item 20. Typo. Actually, I have a question on item 20, so we'll put out. Supervisor Rivas?
I have nothing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to abstain from. Try and find it. Doggone it! Give me a second.
No
here.
problem. I'm going to actually pull. I'm going to actually pull out number 7 because I have one question on that. 23.
Is it 23 that I want to abstain from?
Anyone from the public? None?
No, it's 21.
Oh, that was 23.
I'm going to abstain from 21.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Supervisor Botello, it'll be 21. You'll be abstaining from. Okay. Botello. All right. So, what's the pleasure of the board?
Oh, I'm going to stay in that one though.
Move the amended consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Munzer, second by Rivas. All those in favor say aye.
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 Against, motion carries. First item will be number 7. Barbara, 7. I have a question.
Yes.
Why are they asking for more money? I thought that the first contract was going to solve everything.
Right. Oh, the first contract was just, we had an adverse ruling at the trial court level in the Awards Homes case. And so the first contract was merely for the motion for new trial, and it was to provide legal work on appeal. And at that time when the first contract was prepared, it was not anticipated that the county would be successful at the motion of new trial, merely because only a small fraction of motions for new trial are actually granted. We have a concurrent case with the benchmark case, which we had a contract for $140,000. It was this contract amendment now to proceed to trial is in line with the cost estimates for the benchmark case. In the benchmark case, because it's been trailing the Awards Home case, we've only spent $30,000 in that matter, with an $84,000 approximately remaining. And So this case now is to proceed to trial. The awards home case is going first with a trial date of March 27th. And so right now we need additional augmentation of the budget so that they can do the briefing and prepare for trial in this matter.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board? None? I'll open up to the public. Anyone from the public? None, I'll close it. I'll make a motion that we approve amendment number 1.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Against, motion carries. Thank you. Number 11, Jim? I'm sorry, number 12, I apologize.
I thought
Was that,
No, I was 20.
15.
well, somebody pulled on 12.
I think you're hearing things.
I think I'm hearing things, right?
It was 14, 15, and 15, and 20.
Actually, I pulled out 12.
12 plus 2.
I pulled out 12. Sorry for that. Jim, I got a question. Sorry about
That's
that.
what I thought, too.
I pulled it out.
Yes, sir.
Does the park application, is that for 2 sites or for 1 site?
As I understand this particular application, this is to do work on the park out at the Migrant Camp Center.
The Migrant Camp Center?
Yeah, that was the request.
Okay. So why did you put Buena Vista Apartments, that as a qualifier?
That might be, I haven't followed this particular grant very closely, but
And then does the CBG grant money, because this is coming out of CBG grant, we're applying for CBG grant. Well, no, yeah, through them. Why can't other parks in the county apply for these type of grants?
that was a discussion that we had with RMA, and this seemed to be the priority for the amount of money that we had available.
Well, I could show you other parks with also money that needs to
Okay.
be allocated too.
Yeah.
It's just-
This was the priority that was set in conversations that we had around this particular grant.
Because I remember that the 2 parks, actually there are 2 small parks up there, they got funding about 3 to 4 years ago. They got a whole new resurface, and yet other parks in our community have not even $1 has been dropped into those parks.
Okay. All right. Well, when the next round comes around, we'll have a conversation with you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Okay, I pulled this item, so I'll make a motion to approve this item.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Item 14, Supervisor Medina.
Yes, just wanted to bring up the $25,000 to participate in a joint fire department feasibility study. I'm looking at this in a financial way. We're spending $25,000 on something that I feel isn't broken. So I'm not sure why we're spending the $25,000 when we spend $1.3 million in fire protection a year, and the city part of that is about $6 million. So just wanted to hear why we would be spending additional $25,000 that I believe comes from the general fund. Is that correct?
In this particular case, it would.
And when that money could be spent on roads.
If I can start the process, and then we can go ahead. Part of the reason is because this was a commitment that the city and the county agreed to in the original contract to move forward with either a JPA or a fire district. There has been an increase of funds, about $600,000, a request from the city.
So that would put us at 1.9?
Yeah, approximately.
Versus their share of $6 million, roughly?
Roughly, yeah. So, if I,
Supervisor Batella?
This all started about 6 years ago, and the initial effort between the 3 agencies was to move towards a joint powers authority, and that's why it's included in our contract with the city of Hollister to continue with this effort. It's never been the intention of this county or the city of San Juan or Hollister to continue under a contract relationship. Right. What needs to happen for sustainable fire protection services in the county is to move to a joint powers authority where we're sharing the risk, the costs, and the liability, and improving services throughout the whole county. We have been very substandard as far as how we approach the fire service, and so this is part of the effort to move in a more positive direction and hopefully evolve into a fire district in which there'll be additional funding available to provide a higher level of service. In order to get there, I think we have to show the public that we're able to jointly work together, thrust the JPA, and this contract here is kind of a pathway as far as we could go to achieve it. And so that, you know, I think it's something that no decisions are being made at this point as far as a direction, other than to weigh our options within the contract period that we're in right now.
Mr. Chairman, may I add to that? And what I was going to add to that as well is that there are unknowns that we don't know about. I think you're right in regards to we kind of know what's happening now. The city of Hollister knows how to run a fire department. We're in contract with them. But if we go this direction, this is a new animal for both the city and the county. So we need to know our options and we need to do our due diligence in advance. And $25,000 is good money to be spent on that to make sure we know what we're getting into.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Munzer.
Yeah, I just want to concur with what Supervisor Patello said. This whole process was never intent to stay under contract. It was always the intent of going to probably first a JPA and then a fire district. And this has been a discussion of the fire committee the whole 6 years, I think, or 5 or 6 years we've been under contract with the city. And so now we are finally to the point where we are in agreement with actually spending the money to have the study done. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, open up to the public. Anyone from the public? None? I'll bring it back. Final thoughts? Pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve item 14.
Second.
Motion by Patello, second by Rivas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion. Those against?
Nay.
Nay. Motion passes 4-0.
4-1.
I'm sorry, 4-1.
It's the
15, Supervisor Medina.
Just a point of clarification. The $20,000 that we're spending here, that's not in the general fund. That's a grant. Is that correct?
It's from the AB 109 Community Corrections Partnership funding.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Okay. Anyone from the public? None? What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval of item number 15, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Rivas, second by Munzer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries 5-0. I do count. Okay, number 20. I'm going to allow...
That's mine, Mr.
Yeah, I'll
Chair.
allow Supervisor Munzer.
And the only, I just want to point out, and like I said, I think it's just a typo. In paragraph 2, at the end of paragraph 2, there's an amount of $226,650, and then in paragraph 3 at the end, it said now approximately $225,650, as noted earlier. So we need to establish which amount is the correct amount and have both say the same thing.
Okay, thank you. I do have some questions on this. Is it you, Brent?
Oops.
A while back, both the City of Hollister and San Bernardino County experienced members of the community obtaining a low-income housing, and when the market hit, when it just skyrocketed, a lot of these families or individuals decided to cash in, and they sold these low-income housing for $500,000, bailed out, abandoned that low-income housing, and sold it for about $500,000 and bought a ranch, places like Los Baños. The city is aware of the situation. The county is aware of the situation. This is not circumventing that situation.
No,
is
sir.
it? Are they pulling any money out?
Not that we know of, no. They're refinancing the first loan and keeping our loan, the county's loan, intact as a part of that refinancing.
In positioning the loan, our interest is still the same in positioning one if they refinance this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are we in position the same? In other words, are we still first in line to get our money if anything happens?
Well, we're second in line.
Well, are we second post and are we second pre and post?
Yes.
So we'll be both. We'll be at the same. Okay. Will they be in jeopardy of not being able to pay their loan?
I'm not sure what you're asking here.
Are they getting a lower interest rate, correct?
Right,
Yes.
and I understand that RMA staff did a calculation to make sure that it was still affordable to the
Right. Right.
residents.
If I understand correctly your question, they're trying to lower their monthly payment by getting a better interest rate.
Okay.
Our loan is a zero interest, zero principal due. It's a balloon at the end if the property is sold.
So the total amount to be refinanced, is that figure still within the low-income housing guidance?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So another family can come in, another low-income family could come in and purchase that property?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm good. Thank you.
And
Okay.
Supervisor Munzer, I think you had a question. Oh, it was the
No,
two,
it was just a
the two
typo on
balances.
the
I don't know
two
the
amount.
answer to that, and we'll have to clarify
As
that.
long as it's looked at.
Thank you.
Corrected it.
All right. Any questions? No? Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve per staff recommendation on number 20.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries 5-0. 21, Supervisor Patello.
Yes, I abstained. I own
Got it. Thank you.
property near
Walk
there.
off for a minute. I'll be like about a minute, Supervisor Patel. Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
Do we need to ask for public comment?
Yeah, sure.
Can you pull up?
Anyone from the public on this item? None? I'll bring it back.
Move per staff recommendation.
Motion by Munzer, second by Rivas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries 4-0. Okay. Now we'll go to regular agenda. First item on the agenda will be Office of Emergency Service. Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I don't believe I need to recluse myself on this since this is a county-wide emergency declaration. Other parts of the county has been affected by these winter storms, and my understanding of the ethics law is that if it affects the whole district and the whole county, I'm able to stay in and speak and vote on this.
Duly noted, Supervisor Batalo.
And
Is that right?
as far as the emergency proclamation, it does pertain to the whole county, but part of the action item is ratifying the contracts for repair. So you might want to consider that ratification of the contracts.
Oh, so I still have to recluse myself, in your opinion, even though it's countywide?
Well, part of it's pertaining to the levies.
Oh. Well,
I can give you the update after. I can give you the update separately if you'd like.
Okay. All right. I'll recluse myself then. It sounds okay.
All right. Well, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Another busy day yesterday and busy night. So I have some updates for you. Don't have anything really on figures cost-wise. Most of the numbers from the retreat last week remain valid. A couple more projects have been added, but nothing significant. So last night, as I'm sure you're well aware, another storm rolled in. The creek levels at Pacheco Creek rose drastically, but not to a level we haven't seen before. We ordered a voluntary evacuation order for the areas of Lover's Lane, San Felipe, yet again. Some of the roads that were closed due to this storm, Shore Road, the entire road was closed and still is. Fairview from Highway 156 all the way through Shore Road to 25 is also closed. Fraser Lake, Fraser Lake Road closed. San Felipe, as Director Barnes mentioned, between 152 and 156 is closed. However, the part between Fairview and 156 is closed due to the bridge that there were some questions about. We were able to fly the drone yesterday, and using the drone, we noticed some cracks in the asphalt. Went and checked it out in person, and the water was coming. It was hitting the top of the bridge, so there's some concerns about its structural integrity. Conferred with RMA, and they agreed that we should shut it down. Pulled some of the K-rails that were up to block it off and put a ton of signs up. On that one, I'd like to thank the city. They came and they helped us out with signs because we were running low yesterday. But that will remain closed, indefinitely at this point. Lover's Lane was obviously closed and remains closed. On the other side, San Juan Highway is closed, Anzar Road, Prescott, and then Rosa Morada was closed as well for flooding out of that little creek next to it. Hazardous road conditions existed on many other roads, including Fairview, Union, Cienega, Highway 25, and Pinoche. As to be expected, mostly due to downed trees, mudslides, and just water coming over the roads. There was at least 7 rescues from vehicles yesterday from people who ignored the road closed signs. There was some kind of event on Highway 152 that was directing people onto 156 into Hollister, and Google Maps did not do us any favors and kept directing people down Fairview, and apparently road signs are a little confusing, so people kept getting stuck. So we had CAL FIRE rescue a few, and Hollister Fire as well. Thankfully, none of them were serious. We didn't need boats or anything like that, but at least 7 cars are probably damaged for good for not heeding the warnings. Yesterday we activated our emergency operations center at a small level, as well as a command post at Dunnville, where we coordinated our search and rescue operations, the drone flights, our public works projects. So one thing I wanted to touch on was the presidential declaration and the gubernatorial proclamation of an emergency in San Benito County. When the president declares a major emergency in a county or in a state, there's multiple programs that can be made available. The 2 big ones are public assistance, which is assistance to local governments or state government to help with the costs of recovering from a disaster, roads, bridges, debris management, emergency response costs, all that kind of stuff. And the second is individual assistance. Individual assistance is the assistance that is provided to the individuals affected by the disaster. So those homeowners or renters down on Lover's Lane, for example. So I want to be very clear, the individual assistance programs were not made available. Only public assistance, and then a couple of the little ones, hazard mitigation. A lot of people heard that the president declared that FEMA was getting involved and that there'd be a lot of financial assistance for the individuals. And while in some instances that is true across the country, in this instance it was not. Normally, the kind of rough figure for a threshold for those programs to be made available is somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 homes being destroyed, and the state as a whole didn't come close to that. And that's destroyed, to the foundation. It's really common in hurricanes. It's really common in tornadoes that go through towns. But we just did not see that level of devastation on the individual basis in the entire state. So a little update on some figures, and this is incomplete. We're pretty much missing all the properties on Hoagie Lane, which is another 5 or 6, and they've suffered some serious damage. But uninsured damage to structures is in the $500,000 range. and damage to contents is just a little shy of that at about $450,000. That's to the individuals. And that's uninsured, so that's not flood insurance. That's what the property owners will have to incur. And it's a rough estimate, but it's also probably low because, again, we haven't gotten figures from several residents who are out there. And we're not even sure what the extent is of last night's storm, if it touched any previously unaffected homes. The majority of the flooding from last night was on the south side of the creek, not the north side, and most of it came out of the new levee break that is on the south bank of the creek and upstream from that first levee break. So that's the end of my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Right, CL, right?
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing that Kevin's office has done a fantastic job. I think it's really important that it's noted in public. I know we've talked about it internally, but he's been working on the weekends in the middle of the night. I've been on the phone with him, almost every weekend, every day, every evening, and I've been out there, and he's just been doing a great job, as well as Louis out of administration. He's been kind of one of our front face folks here in admin, representing the county as well with news. So I just wanted to mention that in public.
And if I may add one more thing, Louis, I'm sorry I didn't mention you. Louis has been my right and left hand man. He's been great, and it's been a team effort. I mean, it's been everybody. It's been Public Works. Jake from Public Works, Brent Barnes. The whole county's kind of come together and helped. Tracy Belton from Health and Human Services. So I don't want to take any or really all of the credit. It's been the county as a whole helping these people out, and we wish we could do more, but we're definitely doing our best.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Supervisor Medina? None? Supervisor Riva?
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Mazur?
I just want to thank Kevin. I've called him back yesterday. Was it yesterday? I called you at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I called you again at 7 o'clock at night. One of these
Not remember.
It was like, and he took my calls, and I just really appreciate everything you've done. Thank
Absolutely.
you very much, and everybody that has worked very hard on this issue. Thank you.
I just want to thank your staff, Ray, for really reaching out to the Board of Supervisors and keeping us up to date on matters of importance. Thank you. All right. Anyone from the public?
So last night, the creek was up to 17.73 feet. Right now, about half an hour ago, it's down to 11.06. So it's there. But I just wanted to reinforce, Kevin's done a great job. He's very responsive. He's doing everything he can, and he really has the residents that are being affected in his heart, and just he's trying to do what he can. So I just want y'all to know that.
Thank you.
Morning, Richard from Hollister. I'd like to repeat an email I sent yesterday to Kevin and the CAO, thanking both the Office of Emergency Services, everyone who supported them, and all the people out there working. I was not personally affected by the flood, but having been through a disaster or two and seen some results, you can tell when people are on top of the job, when they're coordinating well. I think it's absolutely obvious here they're doing a terrific job. You can tell by the reports that they're right on top of it. We have a limited amount of resources, so we can't move the world. But you do what you can, and so I want you to know, as a member of the community, this is very heartening, because sooner or later we're going to get the big one. Everybody knows it, and it's good to see that when the chips were down, the Office of Emergency Services responded professionally, and in the county, and some help from the city, borrowing signs or whatever it is, equipment, is good. So I hope you're taking care of the workers who are out there doing it. Yeah, I know they get paid for it, but everybody, when these things happen, everybody goes an extra mile. So send them some donuts, the ones that are not on a diet anyway, and some hot coffee or hot chocolate, or hot tea, whatever they drink. Get a warming tent or a place where you can take them into Dunville and warm them up, because they certainly deserve it. And it's good to know that they are so well organized and on top of it and so dedicated to their jobs that in the terrible, terrible event that we have something even worse or countywide, they will do the best they can within their resources and the people that they have available. So I thank them on behalf of myself and my family.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else from the public? None? I'll bring it back. Okay. Okay, there's some motions that we need to make. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, how would you like this? Would you like a motion to include all, or would you like us to break them up?
Yeah, you can include them all. And just a reminder that it's going to require all four votes.
Okay.
To pass.
So I'll move the adoption of Resolution 2017-22 and the remainder of what's recommended by staff.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Rivas, second by Medina. All those in favor say aye.
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 Against? Motion carries 4-0. It passes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. taking trees out? Oh. Oh, yeah, I heard about that. No, we need Anthony. Yeah, get Anthony so we can continue.
Well, you guys probably make the right decisions. I'm counting on it.
We did everything except your areas. We did not vote, to allocate, to approve funding.
Take care of,
Yeah, that's right. Lansing North. We decided not to do that.
We said put it on the property owners.
Yeah. We told him to turn off the engine when it gets to that point. Attached design. Actually, I pulled it out, and I just have some questions. It's a real simple questions. The first question that I have, will there be any commitment of dollars, space, if we accept this this donation? Louis, you want to answer that?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that there is any commitment for dollars. Obviously, the donation is for an item that would need to be displayed, so whatever space that display would take up is what we would have to make arrangements for. The board, of course, ultimately would decide if we want to put a placard or anything up in the boardroom or anywhere else. The CAO would have, I'm sure, a discussion with the board about that. So art's a little bit outside of my area.
Sure. Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, I think I could answer this. And Ms. Eglin, she approached me as far as, the willingness of maybe the county would be interested in having this artwork displaying our county seal in a wood carving. And, I've seen some of her other work, and it's quite impressive, and I think it would be an enhancement in our boardroom to have a little bit more of a display. I'm very proud of our emblem, our county, the diversity of our rural character, and I kind of wish our boardroom had a little bit more visual items, and I think Miss Eglin, she's quite the artist, and she is willing to do this on her own, no financial commitment to be made by the county, just a gift by one of our constituents.
So, Mr. Supervisor Botello, so the issue that has arisen with this item is what is the standard, what is the policy that the board is going to use to measure the acceptance of such donations, of such artistic renderings, if you will, on behalf of the county. And so we don't have a policy. The county does not have a policy that speaks to that. Obviously, the placard itself is a reflection of the county seal, but it could be argued it is Ms. Eglin's interpretation and a reflection of the rendering of how the county seal is to be presented. And so the issue then becomes, if the board accepts Ms. Eglin's rendering, are we then, as a board, I should say as a county, obligated to accept other renderings without any kind of manner in which to measure that acceptance? So it's really more of this is a constitutional issue that I think County Council, thank goodness, Barbara is here to speak to it, because we didn't cover this part in grad school.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, I've been reading a book about the use of public spaces by a famous architect, and it's an issue. It's an issue that public bodies are wrestling with, so I'll leave it to County Council to kind of speak
right,
to that.
and that's one of the reasons why I brought this to on our agenda this morning, was to there's a lot of input that needs to be made, and certainly when we accepted our county flag, I think we commissioned that from 4-H or FFA, somebody like that, and it was approved before it was actually made. And this is the process that Ms. Eglin hasn't started this work. This is a year-long. This is a year-long project for her to do this if we so accept. And if you look in your staff report, there's two displays of our county emblem, and I think it's the top one is the design that she would like to pursue. And it's keep in mind, this is a wood carving. It's not flat. It's not a picture. It's be about what she described to me, about a 2-foot diameter display with wood that is originated from San Mateo County. So it's be bigger than probably any of our pictures that are up right now, and it's a 3D type of effect, and I think it's that the top. The only thing that she's doing a little different than the bottom seal that is below is the depiction of our mission. And San Juan Bautista has square arches. Well, in reality, they're round. And that was the only thing that kind of caught her eye as far as a change. And she wanted to kind of emphasize the pinnacles. I don't know why. It's in the wrong district. But
the fact that it's a national park doesn't
I'm not qualified to speak on that point, but
I think it's something that hopefully will hang on our walls for a century. But it's up to this board if we could ask her to pursue it, and if not, that's all right too. But
so Supervisor Botello, here's a perfect example of exactly what I'm referring to. You'll notice our own seal up on the monitor. The mission is depicted, and there are 2 crosses. There is an argument to be made, if you will, in the courts. Certainly not my argument, but there are some legal positions that are taken that frown upon such religious depictions of any kind. You will have the counter argument that says, well, we have in this country a tradition of civic religion where we have benign displays of such types of renderings given the historical accuracy involved. So that's something the board should be aware of.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Munster.
I see this as someone wanting to do an artist rendering of our seal. I don't think she's asking us to change our seal.
No.
I don't see us changing our seal at this time.
No.
But if this is her interpretation of our seal as an artist, I have no problem with that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Munsters. When Supervisor Metello called me,
Wait, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, and I have to say, I'm glad she's putting out there the pinnacles. she.
Oh boy,
that's the blue. It's all underwater.
You know, how can I say this? Thank you, Louis.
You're welcome.
I do appreciate it, and I think Louis does have some good points, and I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one, and for someone's art can be someone else's difference of opinion, and we are now going to start going into the subjective arena, which we never should. We could accept this. It's a rendezvous of our county. I understand that. If another one comes in and it starts moving the pendulum a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, and we start accepting other things because somehow they're just related to San Bernardino County, where do we draw a point and where do we get into a legal issue? And that's my concern. Mm-hmm. Is making sure we can go into a slippery slope situation. Supervisor Rivas.
I'll make my comments. Some brief comments, but I want to thank Mrs. Eglin. I think that I commend her for stepping up and wanting to do something for our board and for our community, and certainly the rendering of her design is similar to our seal that we have, and so I would hope that other members in our community will look at her willingness to do this service for our board, and maybe do the same and help us cover up some of these bare walls. When we have these long discussions, it doesn't feel like an insane asylum, and it feels like something a little
just put some
a little better. Let's help spruce up this room, and hopefully we can work with our high school students. I work in an office environment at San Bernardino High School, and it's refreshing. Every single school year, we get new art from our students. They put it up on our walls. I hope that maybe we can start that tradition here, starting with this very agenda item. I doubt that this is a situation that would go to the Supreme Court, but if it does, so be it. We live in a litigious society, I guess you could say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Rios. Supervisor Medina? None. Okay, let me open up to...
before we pound the gavel, I kind of want to add on to Supervisor Rivas' comments. And in my district, art and culture it's a big deal. You have the Aromas Artisans, and San Juan has a culture and a history that supersedes any sort of religious connotation of having, a depiction of a historical building. That's what it comes down to. It's a historical building that was built by the Native Americans that lived here at that time, and it is a centerpiece of our community. And so, I think we have, we're not a very rich county. We don't have rich cities in our county, and donations of art, and it's a big deal for us, and it's an opportunity that only comes around once in a while. And I like Supervisor Rivas' idea as far as encouraging others, and particularly our youth, to endeavor in that.
Well, if we're going to move that direction, let's really implement some programs in which we invite the public, start decorating the walls in a positive way that can reflect San Bernardino County, and this could be the start of that program. I'll open up to the public.
Since I'm Jewish, I get to talk about the crosses. The truth of the matter is, since it's just a rendition of the seal that already exists, I don't see where there's any risk that there's going to be any problem. It's not religious per se. The seal already exists. If somebody had a problem with the seal, I assume they would have sued us by now. So I think because it's a rendition of the seal, I think it's easy to say that it's in some ways, yes, it takes an artist to make it, but it's not original art because it's just a rendition of the seal in a different medium. However, I would like to ask you just to take one step further when you get a chance. You may not be able to do it today because of the agenda issues. Put a little committee together, the Public Art Committee, because there are places that have been flooded with public art and a lot of controversial art, and then you get into the argument about how come this person's gets hung up and mine doesn't get hung up because you don't like my political position. And then you got more headaches than you're going to need, okay? So why don't you just look a little forward? It has nothing to do with this particular one. Look a little forward. Put a little public art committee together. It normally has some representatives of the government, normally some local artists, normally some citizens who are not artists, and have them pass on things you're going to display as public art, especially if they're going to be permanent in front of some building or something. This will save you a lot of headaches in the long run. I assure you, it doesn't mean you won't have any. It just means you will have less. As far as this particular issue goes, I'm certainly in support of it. And as I said, since it's just a rendering of the seal that already is approved and the seal that's already appropriate, I don't see there's any issues that haven't been covered already. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else from the public? None? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the donation from Ms. Eglin on the wood carving of the San Bernardino County logo pursuant to the attached design.
Second. A motion by Patello, second by Rivas. All those in favor say aye.
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 Against, motion carries 5-0. All right, next item, 25, CEO Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this particular item, we actually discussed this at length during our board retreat last Thursday. The CCP meeting was scheduled for Thursday, did not have the meeting. They actually had a meeting on Friday. So I am then again going to invite Ted Baran, our Chief Probation Officer, up to kind of give a report out of the meeting. I was not present at that meeting, but he can give a report. The discussion item that we had with the board was concerning funding or servicing a bond or servicing a loan that we would provide for the build out of the jail, about $5 million, about $250 or so there to service that funding for the jail. So we're going to see a report out from Ted. Ted?
Yes. Mr. Chair, members of the board, the Community Corrections Partnership was able to meet at 8 o'clock on Friday morning. It voted specifically that in the event that the Board of Supervisors should take out a loan to cover the increased construction costs of the jail expansion via AB 900, the Community Corrections Partnership will commit to the servicing of the loan to the amount of $250,000 annually with AB 109 funding.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, so basically today what we're looking at requesting of you is to actually have Joe Paul Gonzalez send a letter of intent that we will finance moving forward with the project, and we have funding for it in light of this new information. And I'd like to pass it back to our CCP representative, Supervisor Munzer, as well. He could probably add a few comments to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did attend the meeting, and I want to thank the CCP board for taking that step and also agreeing to put it in writing so that I will work with County Council and have some kind of draft MOU, for lack of a better term, drawn up between the county and the CCP board.
So, Supervisor Munzer, they're going to commit that shortfall, the $5 million as of today, right?
They're going to commit to $250,000 for the next 20 years, which will cover the $5 million.
And anything above the $250,000 will be a county obligation?
So Joe Paul is not in the room anymore. I think my understanding, and Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is we're going to loan the money to ourselves at zero interest. If that does not work out for some reason and we have to go out and actually pay for a bond, then the finance of the bond would be on the county dime.
Okay.
Yes.
And that, Mr. Chair, if I may, and that's approximately 4.5%, which is about $375,000 a year. So obviously there's a savings about $125,000. So again, it's our money though, and it's, we're not receiving any interest on that. But yeah.
Perfect. Any other comments from the board? Supervisor Botello?
Yeah, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the project and dishing out $5 million and knowing it right now. We have a long track record of running projects like this over budget, and it's a scary proposition that we're kind of on thin ice as it is right, as we speak. And, I want to thank the CCP for, the $250,000, but wasn't some of that AB 109 money meant to deal with jails? Maybe we should be expecting a little bit more of that and maybe fewer programs. We approved a program this morning, for instance, and I understand currently we get about $1 million a year on AB 109 monies, and maybe we should be kind of looking to move more of that money early on in the term of this to get the jail completed and not be such a burden to the general fund.
If I may. So the primary purpose of the AB 109 funding was to mitigate and manage the impact of state transfer of offenders to local counties. So that would include the jail, would also include supervision. There is also language within AB 109 emphasizing the use of evidence-based practices to reduce recidivism, reduce that impact, and reduce crime throughout the community. So it's a bit of a balancing act. There's a lot of programming that is involved. When you look across the 58 counties across the state, a large number of them are actually using the money for day reporting centers, treatment programs, and substance abuse, because that does reduce, one, the population that's actually actively in the jail, and the one that population we actively supervise, and reduces crime activity within the county. So it's a balancing act in part. They do use it for programming within the jail. Some places have used it for augmented services.
Okay, taking into account it takes about $625 of square foot for the jail. Did the CCP maybe discuss or has considered that maybe we could downsize our jail to make the budget process a little bit more palatable? I don't even know if that's possible. We've had conflicting information that I think we're still looking into whether that should be an option or not. But just so it would be easier for the CCP not to pay $250,000 a year, and for 20 years, if they had to pay $250,000 a year for 10 years, it'd probably be better all the way around.
Well, my belief is that the design, scale, and scope of a jail construction is actually outside the scope for the CCP. So we're here to support the county as much as we can.
Thank you, Chief.
No problem.
Mr. Chair? So I guess a comment on that. I think the action that we took at the retreat in hiring the consultant will be addressing some of the issues that Supervisor Botello brought up. They're going to look at whether the scope of the project can be downsized a little bit. And I think all that will be determined here very soon.
To add further, too, I know Adam Goldstone's highlighted, this is unknown. We don't know if it's going to be $5 million. It may be less, maybe more. We really don't know until we receive the bids. But I think I think it's going to be key having somebody on hand to make sure that we keep everyone in check and to make sure that we don't go over budget and there's a lot of add-ons later. I think it's going to be really crucial having the right people in place. So, yeah.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to open up to the public. Anyone from the public? No one? I'll close it. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move for staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Munzer, second by Medina. All those in favor say aye.
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 Against, motion carries 5-0. Next item is CAO year-end report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item actually, we're kind of doing killing two birds with one stone, so to speak. We're going to go ahead and do two items here. We're going to kind of give a quick brief of the end of the year accomplishments tied in with your request, Mr. Chair, to provide this board direction of what the offices do. So we're going to go ahead and highlight today administration and kind of what we do in our office. So we're going to highlight that, and then kind of some of the support that we do with our offices or departments themselves. So when you look at the first slide here, you'll see administration and internal services. You know, we provide a tremendous amount of support, first of all, to the public, to your board, as well as putting together the budget. So this is going to be something I just want to make sure that you understand through administration. We're work with all the departments on budgeting. We work on getting the $188 million budget this last year together, and also to work with public and their concerns and their thoughts. And so we have a lot, kind of the central focal point. I know Supervisor Patella mentioned, receiving calls. If there's any concerns you have with roads or with different things. I know the board receives calls, but so does administration. Mm-hmm. And at that point, we will address them, and we'll address them immediately at most of the time. So just wanted to make sure that the board and the public knew that of what administration does. This last year, what we did, obviously, is kind of been working together with the Community Choice Power Cooperative. We've went ahead and facilitated the LSSI library study, which we'll hear a little bit later this afternoon at 1:30. So we've also worked closely with our local agencies. So we work with the City of Hollister, we work with the City of San Juan Bautista, we work with other nonprofit organizations, and in this particular case, the LSSI study, we actually coordinated with the other agencies to invite them to this because it impacts them, the school, and our community in general. So that gives you kind of an overview of kind of the collaborative actions that we do from an intergovernmental perspective. The next one is financing. The last few years, it's been a monumental task. We've done a lot of work. It's not just been our office. We've worked closely with the auditor's office. We've worked closely with other offices. But in this particular case, Wakiva Software, our office did a majority of the work, basically allowing us to put this $188 million budget together and do it in a way that is very easy on our end. What we've done in the past, and I don't think Supervisor Medina quite understood it, is we put a $188 million budget together basically with Word documents and Excel file sheets. And we would pass those around, and the versions would get mixed up at board meetings. And we would have shortfalls, we would have discrepancies, and we were all scrambling to try to figure it out during the budget itself. So there was no central repository, no central database that was the actual database that someone was working on and then another person would be able to look at. So that was very difficult to manage, to create a budget during the budget year, because everyone was always you're always editing, you're always working on finances. It's always changing, always evolving. So there was a lot of work, and along with doing our regular job too, our finance office here. So there's a lot of work as well. So I commend Melinda. She actually spearheaded this project with IT as well, and auditor's office, and we had Christina, I believe, as well on hand to help out with that. So great work on our side to do that. The RP as well. Everyone now does their own budgets, which is great. So when they do their budget, they type in the budget, and now they have a copy of it. You have a nice saved budget, or you know where you're from last year. You're able to edit it and then post it to the system, which is really good. Clerk of the board. Well, as you can see, when I first started working here almost 10 years ago, this board had paper, probably like 2 binders at times. Reams and reams of paper. And we've really have made some significant changes with that. We have now a Nova system in place. We have a Laserfish system that manage it. We have laptops for you. The public can now view the agendas online. We can view them. I was just working with Supervisor Medina on, there's 2 different looks of how you can view the agenda. You can view it in PDF, or you can view it on the web interface. So, the web interface looks just similar, like you're browsing the web. You click on it, you can click on the item, it goes right to the item. You can pull up the data, you can pull up PDFs, you can pull up charts and maps and other things that are on the agenda. So it's much, much better, and it's much more efficient for the public to see, and not have to have Janet or the clerk of the board make all those reams of paper, print all those out, and put them all together. And it's just, and then if we had to do an edit, it was just a significant issue having to edit it and change it. So I'd like to go ahead and ask Louis to kind of comment a little further on that as well.
So a couple of things with regard to Laserfish in particular, and I heard this from several individuals. On the county website, we now have the web link, hyperlink that people can click on, and all of the information that is currently scanned and that was otherwise available through our database internally is now available to everybody externally, both departmentalized and from a public information perspective. So when you talk about transparency, what we all had close control of before, close to the best, if you will, with regard to information, is now available at the convenience of a click to the members of the public and to the members of all the departments. You don't need a license for Laserfish to go in there and click that web link. That's number one. A few weeks ago, with the help of Christina Slavich again, who has helped Melinda put together the budgets the last couple of years, we were finally able to get all of the metadata information entered into Laserfish, which means that now folks are going to be able to go into the web link file and click on the individual files that have the contracts contained in them and pull that information up directly. The last piece of that mission, if you will, that's missing is being able to begin running reports for the administration, which is something that we have been striving to do. Sometimes what has happened in the past is like, oh, well, there's a contract that's coming up and we didn't know it was expiring, so we got to get it on the agenda and renegotiate that. Now we're going to have a little bit of foresight in terms of what's going to be expiring 30, 60, 90 days in advance, and we'll be able to have a report presented to the CAO and also a report presented to the board. The other piece of that, which we have yet to finalize, is getting a handle on all the contracts. Right now, departments can sign contracts that are under $3,000. Between $3,000 and $9,000 or $10,000, they come to the CAO, and anything over comes to the board. We really don't have a wide-angle view of that. With this new feature and the metadata that we're entering into Laserfish, we're going to be able to run reports and let you, the board, know, well, you know, as a whole, the county signed X number of contracts worth X amount of money. That's going to really give us a better perspective on the financial obligations that we're making for the board. And then finally, with regard to the records retention schedule, the Board of Supervisors has never been presented with a complete, comprehensive records retention schedule for all county departments. That's now in the hands of County Council, and you'll probably be seeing that on the board agenda in the month of March. So those are all pretty big strides that we have made, and Chase Graves, who's the new clerk, has been instrumental in helping us put that together. He's a trained lawyer, so not attorney yet. So he has been very helpful and knowledgeable in that regard. So really big strides, but it's been a little bit painful getting through that, but it's been worth the effort. So hand it back to you.
Yeah, and I want to thank Louis and our current clerk and Janet and you know, for all the work, as well as the departments as well. I mean, this is, we have our job alone is a significant job, and then to go ahead and add systems with the amount of depth that we have, we're only one deep in most cases. It's monumental, and why probably we've never tackled some of these projects in years past. But we have to do this we just have to do this. It's important. With regards to human services, or human resources, excuse me, there has been some significant work that has been accomplished over this last year. Your board actually went ahead and requested to move from CalPERS Health Plan to CSAC EIA. So there was a lot of work that went on with that. Steve Coffey and staff have worked diligently on moving that forward, which we're there. We're still working out the bugs. Probably what I'm hearing, probably another month or so, and I think things will settle down. But for the most part, I want to commend them for all the work that they had to do. Implementing the ACA reporting, successfully converted to e-timesheets. So again, when I started in IBM in the 80s, we had e-timesheets. I came here and it was, we're still in paper. There was no network. There was no computer. I mean, it was just, there was a lot to be done, and we're getting there. We're working slowly but surely this year. There was quite a bit of accomplishments, but it's a good thing. We're moving forward in the right direction. The next item is Office of Emergency Services. Well, they've been the focal point over the last month or two with all the flooding and the rains. Kevin O'Neill has been instrumental in our leadership there. Again, he's worked closely with us. I mentioned that earlier, but he did hold a large multi-jurisdictional active shooter exercise. He has been preparing for an event, and I think this is, this is the fruits of that work. You can see it in action, and so I'm pretty happy to say that. He also initiated the Emergency Operations Center training program and included 3 state-accredited sources, and the list goes on. There's quite a bit more. Again, we can't cover everything. I think there was about 700 pages. We had to cut this down. So we're not highlighting all the accomplishments over the year, just a few. And there's also another one that was missed. I mentioned it a few minutes ago, but IT is also under internal services. Information technology is key to our success and moving forward out of the old horse and buggy days, so to speak, with how we used to handle things with paper. But I think we're making some significant strides. There's a lot of work that needs to be done still. Technology is changing so quickly that it's difficult to keep up. But I think with the new foresight, the new kind of strategic plan that we want to go with, which we're going to be presenting to the entire board soon, will kind of really lay out the groundwork of a more hosted solution, more of a actually cloud-based type activity now that there's new regulations and new securities for governmental agencies to be able to use that. So that's going to be more to come with that. Departmental accomplishments and administrative support, so kind of tying the two together. Completed, this is out of RMA, completed purchase of property for Homeless Services Center, completed design of Hospital Road Bridge, adopted general plan housing element, completed pavement management system study, and completion of supplemental work order for Arcella at RMA. So I do know that our staff in administration has been assisting RMA with the Arcella, and we hope to have that probably fully operational in the next few months. Louis has been spearheading that. And there's a lot more out of that office as well. County Council's office, MOU with Hollister High School District and City of Hollister relating to the River Park and Nash Road. Legal work related to the purchase of 1161 San Felipe. Also negotiation of CHISPA pre-annexation agreement and resolution of litigation related to the health and safety element of the general plan. So there's a lot out of that office too. Almost every piece of information and agreements and service contracts and everything really goes through County Council. So they have their hands full as well. And we've been working with them as well to streamline their office and to look at making their office a little bit more efficient with the limited staffing that they do have. Behavioral health also does a lot of work, successfully completed transition from DSM to ICD-10 diagnostic coding, which was essential for financial reimbursement claiming of services that have been provided to clients. And the next item here is San Benito County Regional Department of Child Support Services. They were able to staff an educational booth at the Hollister Farmers Market and also participated in the local national or Nation Night Out event. One other one that's been kind of a focal point with the board is that the tax collector treasurer's office actually moving forward with a new bank. So we actually there was actually a selection of the new bank, and all county accounts were transferred over and finalized. So that was one that was kind of a significant one as well, and it impacted this board, it impacted administration, it impacted everyone really within the county with regards to getting paid and checks and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of work there from a collaborative point of view. Probation department contracted with Sacred Rock program to engage at-risk youth in professionally guided tours of Pentacles National Park and Juvenile Hall Art Project, mural of Juvenile Hall created by the youth, and past biannual inspection of Juvenile Hall by the California Board of State and Communities Corrections. So thank you, Ted, on that. And there's a lot more. We could probably spend all day talking about all the different activities and all the different things that we've done. But we've, there's been a lot of work over this last year from all departments, and we didn't cover them all.
No, I did want to add a few more things to what the CAO highlighted. Top on my list, and I've heard that from the CAO and from all the board members, are impact fees. We have, as your board has approved, a contract to update all of the impact fees. I had the meeting with the ad hoc, and that is currently in process. We compiled all the database information, forwarded that to the consultant, which is Wilden, and they should have a response back to us within the next 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, with regard to proposed updates. The second piece of that, and with the focus on county revenue, is updating our user fees. We do not have a unified user fee study that's been updated within the last 10 years. So we are in the process of getting a quote for that and bringing that to the board so we can make sure that we update all the fees. County Council will review that and we'll present that to the board as well. We are also, the CEO mentioned the Acela update for RMA that is currently in process. The board approved that today. That update should occur within the next couple of months, and that should go a long way towards giving us a better picture of that office as well. So that on top of dealing with CSAs and establishing a policy, the CAMS interface at RMA, and the library needs assessment. Those are all significant projects which we've undertaken from central admin, on top of the storms and the public information stuff that we've done. So.
And for most of those projects, we've actually started them this last year, just haven't really finished them yet. So, there's been a lot of work those will carry over to this year, and we hope to accomplish almost all those that Louis just mentioned. So that's it, Mr. Chair. I just want to go ahead and turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board?
No. I just have a comment. I know over the past year or entire time I've been on this board, county government is a team sport. Department heads depend a lot on their staff and their work, and this seems like a summary of what we've been doing just recently, but it goes much deeper than this, much deeper. It's just like an onion peeling it away, and I know I've been very happy with the direction we're going in. We have improved, services despite our limited staff and resources. Just a few minutes ago when I was out of the room, I spoke with 2 different constituencies, different problems, and different areas of my district, and they've already had a response from the county, as far as dealing with their, issues. And so I appreciate the hard work that everybody continues to do, and that's what we're paid to do. We're paid and expected to do this type of work and improve how we manage our tax dollars and provide services. So thank you.
I want to echo Supervisor Metello's comments, and on that, I like to see, and I actually talked to Louis about this. I like to see a user-friendly interaction website in which any member of the public can go to a website, almost like a cartoon type of website, and if they have a complaint, if they want to know who their supervisor is, if there's easy access to their supervisor,
or to the chair, and
allowed for issues and complaints to be heard at the proper department, and CC that particular supervisor for that district.
So when I was not going to mention this until we got to the budget, but we do have some reallocation of funds that we're looking at that we had requested from the clerk of the board's office to get some scanners. It's about $20,000 worth. We're going to reprogram that money for this coming fiscal year so that we can update the county website precisely for that reason. And at the bottom of each supervisorial page, we'll have a cartoon rendition of each one of the members of the board so that you can just click it, and that'll email directly to the folks who are in charge. I'm just kidding. But we are aware of that. We are aware of that. Actually, there's a county in Reno, I think, who does that, but that was kind of weird. It looked like Obi-Wan Kenobi or something. It was weird. But we are going to work on updating the county website this coming year, Mr. Chairman.
I mean, it's just that I get a lot of emails from
Yes.
from Mark, and
yes,
and, he's sending us updates, and I say, well, why don't we do it as a global?
Absolutely,
countywide?
absolutely. It's not lost on us. The website does need to be updated. It's I think the original website, if I'm not mistaken, that was established when Mr. Espinosa was the IT director. So we're working towards that.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add to that this was done in collaboration with our local universities, actually San Jose State University, one of their graduate programs. I worked with them, and they were the ones that are actually helped assist with this. And so just, again, as I mentioned about the collaboration, we were, we don't have a lot of money at the time. We were reducing, we were cutting, we were laying people off, and we didn't have a whole lot of money, so we kind of made do with what we could. It's much better than what it was before, but it does need to be improved, definitely.
Thank you. Okay, let me open up to the public. Anyone from the public? None, I'll close it. Okay. Any final thoughts before we move on to the next one? None? Thank you very much. Thank you, Louie, and thank you, Ray. Next item, number 27, Resource Management Agency.
Okay. Pardon me, Mr. Chairman, while oh, this is the PDF. That's not going to work. Did I miss it? I wanted to use this mostly for the for the org charts.
Give it a second. It's thinking.
Well, while we render the technology. Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
20, which one?
23.
23.
Or 6 or 27. Sorry.
Here you go.
So, good morning again. There are several things here before you this morning. The first is a reintroduction to the RMA. A year and a half or so, 2 years ago, you began to talk about creating one department out of integrated waste, public works, and planning and building, and creating a resource management agency so that those three divisions could work seamlessly together. As I'm sure you're aware, there have been a lot of growing pains in that time But we have made a lot of progress in creating one agency. And last fall, you actually did the ordinance, approved the ordinance that created the Resource Management Agency and the various divisions within it. We're here today to describe not the current org chart, but the aspirational org chart, the what we want to be when we grow up sort of thing. And this is a stepwise progression. We're not asking you to go ahead and implement all of this at one time, but I wanted to give you an idea of where we are and sort of where we're headed. Second part of that is we're asking you to consider creating a deputy director position within the RMA. This is similar to what the positions that exist within the HHSA. In fact, we plagiarized heavily from their job description and added the duties that pertain to the Resource Management Agency to fill this out. So, I want to open. Here we go. Without further ado, this is probably a little bit hard to read. I gave it to you in your packages. But I wanted to make the point here that ultimately, budgets and workload permitting, we would look in several years probably to hire more deputy director positions within the RMA, but we're asking that you approve the concept of a deputy director and create a sort of overall management structure where the deputy director will have indirect responsibility for the public works and the planning divisions and direct responsibility for what we call the green resources division, for lack of a better name. We can have a naming contest later. A couple of those subdivisions within the green resources function do not yet exist, the cannabis regulation and the parks and recreation group. But the main function of the deputy director would be to oversee the combined administrative functions of the Resource Management Agency. This is no disrespect to the folks that are in that group now, but there is a lot of work, and we're having the continued growing pains with trying to get the various divisions to work together. So this would be a person who would have direct oversight on that and help bring those functions together. This is billing, accounting, parks, reservations, all the contract issues, and so on. So that's sort of the high-level org chart. Now, the reason I wanted to put this up and explain it a little bit, the two positions with the dotted borders that say deputy director are not what's on the table today. Only the one position that's in the blue area with the solid border is before you today. So this is the sub-org chart for the Green Resources Group, and as I mentioned, it includes now only the integrated waste staff, and would in the future, with the board's approval, add the cannabis regulation and the parks and recreation functions. We anticipate, particularly in parks and recreation, that we will have need for a lot more oversight and management of recreation staff, ultimately, as we build out parks in many of the new community areas of the county. We also anticipate in cannabis that there would be a lot of regulatory activity around various grows and operations within that, and licensing and potentially taxation of that as the board chooses to go forward. So this is more detail on the administrative function that exists within that Green Resources Group. You can see it's fairly small, and that's why we have a lot of work spread between the various groups, and a need to what I term cross-pollinate between the public works planning and integrated waste, so that we have backup. The CAO mentioned that his office is frequently one deep. Well, we are the same way, And so the ability to cross-train staff and cover all of those functions with backup personnel is critically important to providing good customer service. This is the planning org chart. We are currently in process of hiring an assistant planner and an associate planner. We are currently in the process of working with the City of the City of Hollister on the shared housing coordinator, and we are also negotiating to hire a temporary senior planner, a person who can take on particular task work for us over the next 6 months and actually get some of the backlog out of the office. In Public Works, we have a little bit more staff. Excuse me. The important thing here to note are the green boxes with X's through them. Back in the summer last year, we were $500,000 short in terms of our overall budget, and we were asked to cut to meet that. And these are the places, these vacant positions are the places where we've achieved that salary savings. We do have one recruitment open. In fact, I think it just closed for an engineering tech that would be shared by both the facilities group and the Public Works engineering group. That would be Adam's facilities group and Jim Pulfer's engineering services group. I'm going through this quickly, and obviously if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. That's sort of the overall org charts. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that at this time. We're looking for excuse me, your acknowledgement, approval of the overall concept for the RMA, not all of the positions, simply the deputy director, consideration of the deputy director job spec and approval to move forward with that. And I will turn it over to Georgia to talk about the deputy director job spec briefly.
Good morning, supervisors. This is fairly simple, and Brent is correct. We plagiarized a fair amount from what the Health and Human Services Agency has with respect to its deputy directors. But again, the bigger issue here is creating that sort of a structure so that we have those folks to deal ultimately with the operations, with again, the green resources team and the administrative function, as well as the public works function and the planning and building function, with the operations and the details, which then frees up your director to work on the more strategic issues, the 10,000-foot level kinds of things. There's a lot of holes in the dike to fill. So what we did was create this, geared it to the Resource Management Agency, and then looked at the salary and set that 30%, approximately 30% below what that director makes. So that's where we are. The bigger picture of compensation is still to be looked at by your board from a county-wide level, but in bringing forward a position, we have to bring you a salary recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question right there because you're touching on the spot that, looking at the organizational structure, which I support, I think you have to break it apart. And, on the salary, the further away you are from the director, the smaller maybe the qualifications that you're probably get in the deputy. And, I'm not sure the timelines that we have established. Maybe someone else that's closer to the department and what's going on in the county could figure out when we are going to achieve all the staffing and management levels that we want to get to. I don't think it's something that's in the near-term future, but we absolutely need a deputy director. I think that, is part of what is needed there. But should we start with a salary that is more closer to the RMA director himself, and then we get somebody that could kind of have cross responsibility for certain tasks assigned by the director himself in planning and public works, where we have that expertise rather than just someone that's focused on, has a lot of ability in parks and administration and integrated waste, but where we have a little bit more responsibility in the other circles too.
Well, without commenting too much on the operation, and I'll leave that to Brent Barnes, I would say in the perfect world, he would be coming to you and saying the funds are there, we need all three. I think that he probably does
well,
from
I'm
a
not talking
workload
about
perspective.
getting all three.
But
yeah.
no, and we recognize that. In terms of getting the financial house in order, that's where this becomes fairly critical. There is at least a principal planner in place now and a senior engineer in place now that kind of alleviates a little bit of that. And if you want more detail, I'm going to have to stop and let him fill in those details. I think that was why we went to that. That doesn't mean this person can't be asked to help with operations. This particular person, whether you hire a deputy director to oversee public works, may or may not be an engineer, but they can do a lot with operations and critical paths of projects and those kinds of things. And this person who is hired will still have a very broad skill base. In terms of that, that doesn't mean they can't assist, and I'm sure that they will probably be asked to do so on many occasions.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Badita.
Just the word deputy director, I had some concerns about that. Sorry to be such a downer, but we need more boots on the ground. We don't need these high-paid people. We need people that are doing the work, that are filling the potholes that are out there, and that's just how I feel.
Your comments are well taken. I certainly appreciate that. I believe we need both. There's a huge amount of administration that the Resource Management Agency requires. The deputy director position here would definitely take the administrative load off and allow the field workers at all levels of road crews and everyone else to focus on their jobs.
And you have one road crew? Is that right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And
I think right now the timing isn't there. I think the timing is we need to have more road crews in order to do the work.
Well, chicken and the egg. We will be coming back to you. We came to the board last year with a request for additional staff in the road crews and other field level work, and the board chose to not do that because of budget restraints. We will be putting that issue before you again in budget season, which is coming up right away.
Okay.
But it's a difficult choice. If I might go back to Supervisor Botello's question just very briefly, both planning and engineering are very task-specific, technically oriented sorts of positions. What we're looking for is a Jack or a Jill of all trades here that can speak planner, can speak engineer, but can handle the administrative, the contracts, and the negotiation side of all of that, rather than a really deep technical person.
Okay, thank you.
Ray?
I just wanted to highlight, I hear Supervisor Medina's thoughts and comments. I mean, we totally are behind that. There's a significant hole in that part of the department. But I think there's also a significant hole in the administrative side as well. The financial side, we just had an audit committee meeting this morning that really kind of, brought to fore some of the major issues we have with reporting. I mean, we're going to have to go back and make some corrections and address that. And unfortunately, it's due to lack of staff on that side of it. And that puts into jeopardy, even further amount of money. Could be grants. It can be a lot of other things that affect other offices. So if we don't have those ducks in a row, it can have a larger scale outcome of issues, and it can affect the community and all the constituents that live in our community. If we don't get grants, or we can't get funding for buildings or whatever it may be, I mean, there can be some significant downfalls with it. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but it could put into jeopardy some of the grants that we apply for and other things. So we really got to keep that in mind as well. I'd like the audit committee to kind of highlight a couple things, if you don't mind.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Medina, normally I would totally agree with you that we need people to fill the potholes. Unfortunately, this department, we merged 3 different departments and expected one person to oversee all of them. And it is coming along, as Brent said, but one area that has sorely been lacking is someone to especially oversee the finances. Supervisor De La Cruz and I have been on the audit committee for 3 years. Every year this ends up being an issue of not getting out the financial reports in a timely manner. And as I see the organization, this new deputy director will be helping Brent to oversee that. And it is critical because it will affect all kinds of other departments if we lose the ability to get grants because we can't get our financial statement out in a timely fashion. It's going to have a wide-ranging effect. And like I said, Supervisor De La Cruz and I have been, for 3 years, we've been trying to get the audit out. And it's a 2 step forward and 1 step back. And I'm hoping this will be another 2 step forward in that process.
Yeah.
Which will, again, assure of money being theirs to fill the potholes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have nothing else to say. Is Ray and Jerry said it perfectly. Supervisor I'm sorry, Supervisor Rivas.
Yeah, just real brief comments. I want to thank staff for the report. I think that certainly as a board, we gave direction to our administrative staff to make this happen. Was it 2 or 3 years ago now? And so certainly I think that we all support. I, in particular, support this because I believe that it's going to do a good service for our community to have the restructuring of this organization, to have this resource management agency. Unfortunately, the current structure, I think, is lacking. It's lacking support for yourself. I don't think it's practical to expect one person, one individual to handle this mega department from an administrative standpoint. I think that you need that support. And I think, moving forward, once we restructure this department in such a way that it would, result in hopefully more staff at the bottom to help implement a lot of the goals that we have as a board and as an administration. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Georgia, before we continue, did I hear right that there will be a 30% differential between the assistant and the
Correct. We've calculated it that way.
We have a history with the 30% situation, and I cannot support that concept. And I don't know for Ray or I know Anthony, Jerry, you got to know what I'm talking about. So,
well, what we did to get to this, because the salaries, as you well know, within the county are a little bit all over the board. And we sometimes run into some recruiting and certainly retention difficulties. And so we tried to look at where do we tend to have deputies and assistants and try to make something fit within that realm, thinking all along, can we attract someone? And clearly we've talked about compensation at a county-wide level. And what you're seeing that comes before you here tends to be those where we have a criticality kind of thing. In this case, we don't have a filled position, and of course, we're not suggesting we wait for people to leave to raise the salary. But
Let me ask the question in a different way. Is the 30% the trigger that allows a raise? So in other words, if Britt was to get a $10,000 raise with a second person.
No, that's not what we're recommending at all. We're just saying that's how we set this salary. Any changes in salary, whether it be to a represented group, an unrepresented group, or whatever, comes to your board. We are not creating a tie. We are just calculating and setting a salary.
So the way I asked it, you answered my question. Supervisor Medina?
You're saying 30%, correct? 30% of what?
30%. Again, if you take generally in compensation.
Well, can you give us an idea
Yes.
in a dollar? I mean, 30% means nothing if it's 30% is zero.
Absolutely. And it's in your report. Let me find it here. Okay, the top step. So we look at the top step of the director and then set the top step of this particular position 30% below. And then, of course, each subsequent step is calculated at 5% below that.
And just for clarity, since we have
$10,870.
That's about a little bit over $120,000 a year?
Yes.
And that's before benefits or after benefits?
No, that's salary.
Okay, so you're looking at maybe 160, 170?
Well, in terms of expense to the county, yes, because we do pay the benefits, but the benefits are set at this level. They're the same.
Just back to my
all
idea, so that's
employees.
about three people, three full-time equivalent people that would be working at a lower level.
Probably two.
No, yeah, two,
Okay,
at least
2.5.
maybe.
Okay.
Ray?
I was going to mention, just for clarity too, so that way everyone knows, we have multiple steps. And A through G, I believe, is for most of the county right now, and they're approximately 5% each step. So you kind of work your way back from that. And when you're talking fully packaged, the full package is usually more, which she's saying there. So.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Georgia.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm not quite as concerned about the proposed salary as much as it being able to attract somebody with some knowledge. I want a deputy director that has a little bit more input to the director as far as sharing ideas and what's going on and being assigned tasks that may go outside of his circle and be willing to and be successful fulfilling them. And that's kind of the person I'm hope that is recruited.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Metella. Okay, do you need direction from us, or have you?
Well, we have several staff recommendations here. There are 4.
Okay.
And the first is review and approve the concept of the structure. Second is to review and approve the actual job specification. Approve the addition of 1.0 FTE, which is actually adding that allocation. And then the fourth one is basically setting that salary. That amends our class title and pay plan.
Okay,
So those are the 4 recommendations.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go to the turn it over to the public.
Good morning again, Marty Richmond from Hollister. Supervisor Batella stole my thunder here because he said exactly what I was going to say. So, ditto.
Sorry about that. I ordinarily don't.
Okay, Marty, have a nice seat.
I'm not the type. I come up here and I usually criticize at a high level because I don't believe it's my job as a member of the public to try and go down and tell somebody how to sharpen their pencil. That's, you got experts to do that. But looking at it from a high level, I am concerned that we've gone years and years and years with all these problems in those agencies that were eventually put together to make the resource HC. And I think even after we put it together, obviously that wasn't going to be some kind of instant fix. No one expected that. But we've had a lot of problems. And so I would like to get, I'm not sure we're talking bluntly enough here. The question is, do we really need somebody to just get in there and hustle? Or do we need somebody who's smart enough to get in there and really analyze what's going on in all of it, since that'll be the first deputy director, rather than just stovepipe that person into one area, and be capable of doing a lot of stuff and analyze it all and come up with solutions, saying, I'll just pick one out of the air. The road crew shouldn't be 2 guys in 1 truck. It should be 3 guys in 2 trucks, because that's twice as efficient. Or the planners, we should have planners waiting in the rings, whatever, so that when somebody comes in is willing to pay for a planner, we just go pluck them off the board and shove them in there. We don't try and just have our regular planner do it and they get all overloaded, because we've all seen that. I can only tell you as an outsider, so I'm not trying to do someone else's job. Maybe someone will tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm willing to accept that. But as an outsider, I see what we need here is somebody who's got the skill and the time and the capability of doing the analysis to fix the whole thing. Because somebody has got to be out there running it, and that's usually the director, servicing everybody while someone in the background looks at everything and says, let me tell you how we ought to reorganize this. It's very difficult to do both at the same time. Or you could flip it and make the deputy director the guy who goes out and services the troops, and have the director sit back and say, now I don't have to service everybody, I got the deputy director. If we're doing that, my personal experience is that's an expensive operation, and maybe you're not funding it well enough to get the person you need. And I will wrap up by saying, if you fund it too low and don't get the person you need, you've wasted every buck you spent. So I recommend you take a good hard look at that and decide what level you need somebody who could do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty. Anyone else from the public? No, close it. Okay. All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move per staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Munster, second by Rivas. All those in favor say aye.
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 Against?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay, thank you. Next item, 28. Oh, well, bottom line, who wants to serve on the area agency committee with Supervisor Botello?
I'm on it. Yeah.
You're on it? Does it require 2 supervisors? And what days do they meet, Supervisor Botello?
It's a Wednesday, usually the 3rd Wednesday of the month.
And what time do they?
They're pretty good about meeting at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock? Is it here in San Benito County away?
Oh, they move it around a little bit, mostly in Santa Cruz County. They'll have a meeting or 2 here in San Benito over the course of a year. But it would be very helpful having another supervisor, as it does conflict with RCRC on occasions. Our staff is very good about attending the meeting and representing our county. I think that's what's expected from us, but it would be great to have another supervisor. Santa Cruz County has 2.
Okay, any volunteers? No volunteers.
The franchise agreement is expiring in June of 2018. So we began the presentations to City of Hollister, the county, San Juan Bautista, and San Juan Bautista and the county approved to go to request for proposal. Hollister actually considered this twice and decided to not proceed on going to request for proposal. What they did request is to have the 3 regional agency members meet as part of an ad hoc committee, and they basically generally stated that they would like to have 2 representatives from each of the agencies.
Perfect.
Long answer.
Thank you.
Sure.
On that note, I'm going to appoint Supervisor Munzer and Supervisor Botello to this committee. Any objections from fellow supervisors?
I just have a comment. I think it's a great idea to meet with the 2 other agencies to try to clarify what we're trying to, hoping to accomplish with the JPA, and I think it will clear a lot of concerns that Hollister has. So this is a good move.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Medina? None? Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public. Thank you. Anyone from the public? None? I'll close it. All right, then that committee. Can you report back on a monthly basis, Supervisor Botello and Munzers? Because this is very important.
I mean, as long as we or whoever can put together the meeting that quickly, yes, we'll be happy to report back.
Yeah, because I know that it's in June of 2018, right?
June of 2018.
And I know there's some trigger dates that go back.
Vote to release it in June of this year, if we go to request for proposal.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right. All right, let's move on. Number 31, CEO. Ray?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So your board last year, or about thereabouts, requested from staff to bring back reports or have a reporting back to you with regards to the CBO funding, as well as any other the funding that we provide to our nonprofits, our local nonprofits. So in this particular case, we've asked Julie Vieira to go ahead and come up and kind of give your board an update, presentation to your board of the from the San Bernardino County Chamber of Commerce, and just give a status update, kind of. So that's it.
And the presentation should be on here somewhere. I'm not sure. Yes, please. I don't want to take anything up, mess anything up.
Let's go ahead and cancel that. And yours is
There should be
here.
a PDF on that.
And there's your PDF, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll open that with Adobe. Go up there. It's downloading.
Should be PowerPoint.
Save this stuff for next vacation.
I don't know that he loaded that on here.
Usually have it on the desktop.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I don't think he loaded it on. Is that?
It didn't get loaded? Nope,
Yeah.
that's not it.
How about to get into
That's something about
It's a
roads.
good habit.
Yeah, no, I don't think it got loaded.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Okay.
So hold on a minute. Hold on. Hold on.
Rotate it.
Actually, it's going to be 75, and then where is that thing? What turns it around?
Tools. Go to tools.
No, that's not it. Okay, where's the rotate button, guys?
Right click, just right click.
Oh, right click.
and then-
Rotate clockwise. There we go. Well, it sort of didn't fit on there, but it'll be what it'll be.
Okay.
We got a job opening.
Not sure this is going to work. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm not here asking for money, and I'm not here asking you to serve on a committee, so that will be good. But I do invite you.
What in the world are you here for?
Hey. You wanted a report, so I'm giving you a report. So here we go, and I'll make it fast. But I do invite you to attend the tourism committee meetings that are held the third Thursday of the month at 9 o'clock at the chamber office. So that way you can find out what we are doing. So this is a short presentation on what we have accomplished since the last fiscal year. I gave you each a packet of deliverables that San Benito County is in or the Pinnacles is in, so you can take a look at those at your leisure. We completed the visitor guide. It was released in January. That is this one here. Took several months putting one together because we have not had one in our county for a long time. So far, these are the areas that they're in, the San Francisco Airport, and you can read all of the areas. We just went to pick up 6 more boxes this morning because a lot of places have already run out of them. The Central Coast visitors map is the smaller picture on there. That is in cooperation with the Central Coast Tourism Council. So we can co-op with them, get it at a reduced rate, and these are the distribution areas. That says Los Angeles and San Francisco hotels is what is cut off there. Visitor centers and 6 California airports is where this is available. The next slide, the Big Blend radio show. This is a FAM tour that we have had come down for 2 years in a row. These are our views on their online presentation for the last 12 months. We have pages for Pinnacles National Park, San Benito County Chamber page, Pinnacle Gateway Community page, and you can look at those. So these are the individual pages that are developed within their online presence. And these are how many views we've had within the last 12 months. This was a partnership, a 3-year partnership, and the cost to us was just a little over $2,000. So I think we are getting our money's worth quite well within the last 12 months of how many views we have had on our pages. And we are in the process of developing more pages, but it does take time. It takes time to put it all together. So, and they do interview me once a quarter on everything that is going on in San Benito County. So I also have a live interview. I was supposed to do it last Friday. However, with the power going in and out, we decided that was not a good thing to do, so we're going to pre-record mine for next month. The California road trip tours and the Discover California Central Coast, those are also co-ops with the Central California Tourism Council and Visit California. So we get a reduced rate for being members of both of those organizations, and they help us put together, and I have noted in each one of your California road trips how many different places San Benito County is noted in there. And we are right on the front page with the mission in San Juan Bautista, if you'll notice, on Discover California's Central Coast. The Pinnacles National Park, this is a trifold that we developed at the office with the help of an outside printer. We printed 50,000 copies. We are ready to go into our second printing. That is how many of these have been distributed through all of these areas. We have it with certified folder. So it's in 206 San Jose and Santa Clara hotels. It's at the San Jose International Airport, 223 San Francisco hotels, the Oakland International Airport, Monterey Airport, Gilroy Welcome Center. It was presented at the Garlic Festival, and I just recently did the San Francisco Bay Area Travel Show where we handed them out there at the travel show. So we are, like I said, we're ready to go to our second printing on these. The Pinnacles, anything about the Pinnacles seems to be something that flies off the shelves. We were in Via magazine. I don't know how many of you know that that's the 3A publication that comes out monthly. 207 million copies are mailed quarterly. So to Alaska, Wyoming, Montana, and the other listings there. We also have an online presence for 12 months, and we have a year contract with them. Our contract will be up in September. So we have one more printing. This is a picture of our last one where the red arrow is. Each month I changed the picture, so it was the Mission, it was Pinnacles. Now it's kind of our agriculture showing, and the next one will be our wineries that will be featured. This is our latest tourism effort at the San Francisco Bay Area Travel Show. We handed out 240 copies of our guide. We handed out 200 visitor bags, 282 giveaways. We had different giveaways to give to people. 129 of the trifold from the Pinnacle trifold, 130 San Juan Bautista calendar of events, and then 769 other pieces of collateral for tourism attractions within San Benito County. This was our budget for last year. What we requested from the City of Hollister, the County of San Benito, and San Juan Bautista is the top part. The second part is what we were granted, and then this is the budget and where everything has been spent so far. Total number spent is $70,694. Mm-hmm. And that will be through the June budget. So these are our projected projects that some of them are in the works, some of them will be completed by June 30th. We are going to be in the San Francisco Giants 2017 yearbook. For those of you who are Giants fans, I'm happy. For those of you who are Dodger fans, I'm sorry. I had a couple people call me about that. One on my board. So we have a renewed contract with Certified Folder for the Pinnacle Trifold. That will be the second $50,000 going out. We have a TC co-op to target Canada travelers. We have the San Francisco Bay Area Travel Show for that. Our funds have to be in for the 2018 show. We save $1,500 if we pay now instead of waiting until it becomes closer to the event. Also, we would like to do the San Diego Bay Area Travel Show and co-op with the Gilroy Visitors Bureau. We will continue our Big Blend Radio, the National Park Traveling. We've had so many views on that. I think we are getting a good bang for our buck on that one. Dunbar Productions. I don't know if when you go to hotels, you read or watch what's going on in the community that you're visiting in. It tells you about hotels. It tells you about other attractions. We are going to be working with, and those of you who remember Rodney Dunbar, this is his production company. He used to be on KION, was the news anchor. We are going to be targeting some of our restaurants and our attractions to be playing in the Monterey hotels. So that is a process. It will take a few months to film everything within our community and get it on the televisions over there. But if they're staying in the hotels over there, they can come for a day over here. We have a placement ad going on in Cycle California, which is a cycling magazine that pretty much has been recommended by by our bike shop. That's one of their most popular magazines that they hand out. And then we are looking at hiring a consultant to bring back the Condor Classic. So that is the short version of everything that we are doing for economic development and tourism within San Benito County. So, does anybody have any questions?
Supervisor Medina?
Just the last one, the Condor Classic.
Condor Classic used to be a cycling cycling race that we had here in San Benito County that the chamber used to be put on. And I think the last year that they did it was 2008, and it hasn't been done since. I don't have the staff to do it myself. I have one full-time person and then a part-time person. So we are looking at hiring a consultant to put that together and bring it back for 2018, in the fall of 2018.
Supervisor Botello?
Yes, Julie, I just want to say you're doing an outstanding job.
Thank
You're
you.
doing a great job. I go out to eat pretty much in our own county. I don't like driving too far. And I've noticed there's a change in the restaurants. There's people in our restaurants. There's, it's almost unbearable to play golf. And I'm sure they're going, and visiting our parks. And the other day I bumped into you at a local coffee shop, and you're sitting with a person from San Juan and a person from Hollister, kind of strategizing things. And I really admire that. And I just want to bring that up, that all this happens because of a lot of hard work with your leadership. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, for the hours that we put in and the investment from the county, you guys could not hire an employee to do what we have accomplished. So I have to say you're getting a good return on your investment.
Thank you. Supervisor Bunser?
I just want to, you're doing a great job. I know we've been at the Pinnacle Partnership Gateway meetings in King City and elsewhere together, and you're out there promoting San Benito County, and the examples here you have are fantastic, and you're not asking us for any money. You're not asking
Not
us
now.
for,
I will be
to
back.
serve on the committee. You got my support 100%.
I'm like a bad penny. I will be returning. Budgets are coming up, so.
Thank you. Supervisor Regan?
Same, I just want to extend my thanks.
Well, it's a team effort. It's a team effort, that's for sure.
Okay. I'm going to open up to the public.
Oops, I just
If I didn't have this to go to every 2 Tuesdays a month, what would I do? Just as a matter of record, so people know, I am a member of the chamber, so I have a kind of a vested interest here, although I'm not on the board. For years and years, I went to these supposed meetings about tourism and other things here in Hollister and in the county, and the report was always the same thing. I remember people coming up here, we won't use any names, and their entire report was, we got a lot of phone calls this month. And then the next month they'd come back and say, well, we got a lot of phone calls this month, a lot of inquiries. And then the third month and then the fourth month they were gone, and no one could find the phone records. This is a completely different deal. Okay, this is a totally different deal. I don't know how she gets that much printed documentation for that little money. If one of you guys are looking for a printer for your next candidacy, you ought to ask Julie where she's going, because she's getting her money's worth, I'll tell you. It's amazing. I find it amazing that you can get that much printed matter distributed and that much advertising. And it's all about advertising, let me tell you. And that brings up the related subject of when you go and talk about your taxation thing, don't forget the sales tax, which only needs 50%. And oh, by the way, Hollister, the financial guru at Hollister stood up and said, we're getting a lot more sales tax a year than we used to. And we haven't changed the rates in Hollister, which means we're getting business, okay? Now, the hotel isn't open yet. If it ever opens, we need it badly. You saw 1,600,000 views, was that on the Pinnacles? I think 1,600,000. As soon as it went to the term national park, it became a whole different ballgame, because there are people who pride themselves on seeing every national park in the nation. And so it has a reputation just by the fact that it says national park, and we should build on that. I support your attempt last time to hike the temporary occupancy tax. We're among the lowest you're going to be able to find anywhere, way too low. We did a lousy job of explaining it. We did a lousy job of campaigning for it. And we should make up for that by getting that straightened out, because when you go to San Francisco, they take out more TOT than you wind up paying for your hotel. So your hotel's $200, but your local taxes are $500. Thank you very much. Except if you're near Levi Stadium, then it's $700 and $20 for a beer. So we're obviously not taking advantage of that. So I think there's a lot of things to be done, but I want to say that Julie's done a fantastic job on very little money. Thank you very much for your
Thank
work.
you. Anyone else? No? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Judy.
Okay, thank you. I just want to point out this picture here, right here. We are in 12 countries and 12 different languages through this California publication. So I can't read the titles because it's all a different language on these, but we are in 12 different countries. Okay, now, how do I get...
I'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next item will be the AT&T presentation. It's 24 pages, right? 24 slides.
No,
Oh, my bad.
24 minutes, so a minute a page.
Minute a page? Sounds
Won't even
about
take
right.
that.
Okay, I'm
Promise.
just trying to...
Ray, you know.
Yeah, I was going to have Louis introduce this item.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mark Blakeman from AT&T is here to give this presentation, and I'll turn it over to him.
Great, thank you. Hi, again, my name is Mark Blakeman. I'm a Vice President of External Affairs, 430 Bush Street in San Francisco. Joined with me today is Betty Saxon. Dr. Betty Saxon is our Area Manager for External Affairs and covers San Benito County. I wanted to talk to you briefly about our latest infrastructure investment project, which part of it will be happening here in San Benito County to improve our wireless and our wireline broadband services in the county. Let's see here. We have, and I'll run through this. I know you have a presentation. There's one additional slide that has that in my presentation, so it's actually 25 pages. But I won't cover all of this because I know you have got it in written format. But what we have before you today is AT&T's participation in the Connect America Fund. This is the first time that AT&T has accepted federal subsidies, and this was created very similar to how FDR created the infrastructure projects in the New Deal on building roads and bridges back in the 30s. But this infrastructure project was focused on telecommunications infrastructure and how we could bring broadband to people, roughly 23 million Americans who either did not have access to broadband or had access to it but at very slow speeds. So this is to bring Americans with a 10.1 megabit per second fixed broadband service. And every single census block in the country was analyzed on whether the service was available to them. And then subsidies were created to help companies like mine that wanted to go into these high-cost areas or where there wasn't a return on the investment in order for us to invest in those areas. When we take the money, we have to meet or exceed a speed of 10 megabits per second down, 1 megabit per second up. We have to have a latency of 100 milliseconds or less round trip. So that's when you want to look at your cat video on YouTube and you hit enter, how long does it take you to start playing that video? And it has to be 100 milliseconds or less, which is about the blink of an eye. We have to have an initial minimum usage allowance of 150 gigs per month. Our rates have not been set yet, but when they are set, they have to be comparable to the fixed wireline urban rates. So whatever we're charging in San Francisco or Oakland or Los Angeles for this comparable service, or it has to be below the FCC annual national rate benchmark. So it has to be under at least $72 a month. And then the great thing for stakeholders and constituents of yours is that it has a very specific deployment milestone date. So we have to have 40% of this built by the end of this year, 60% by 2018, 80% by 2019, and 100% of it built by 2020. And I added 2021 because there is an option if we're having some mitigating circumstances that we can ask for another year. So, for instance, if we're not getting the permits that we need from an entity or from the Coastal Commission or whatever the issue may be, we can petition and ask for another year. We have to continue to offer voice service. We have to continue to participate in Lifeline, which is subsidized service for low-income telephone users. We have to bid on all E-rate RFPs, so that's when a school comes and asks for services, and they are, because of their school hot lunch program, are serving low-income students. We have to participate in all of those. We have to subject ourselves to an annual audit, at least one per state per funding term. And we are able, the census blocks were divided into high-cost areas and extremely high-cost areas. And while the subsidy was offered for the high-cost areas, we are allowed to take that money and build in the extremely high-cost areas as well. However, we won't be able to go after additional subsidies when the extremely high-cost subsidies are made available, which they have not been done yet. All local exchange carriers, incumbent local exchange carriers, were allowed to accept the dollars on a state-by-state region. So we are the local phone company in roughly 22 states. We took the money in all but 3 states that we do business in. And we have to accept and must use the money on a state-by-state basis. So we can't take the money and go build in another state. We have to keep it in California, and we have to meet the allocations on a state-by-state basis. So what did AT&T accept? We took $427 million per year over the next 6 years and to build this high-speed internet offering in 18 states. And in California, that means that we have to, we took about $68 million here in the state of California, and we have to build to 141,500 homes and small businesses, again, by the end of 2020. So that's 1.1 million homes nationwide that we have to serve. This is for the last, what we call the last mile connection, so bringing the services into people's individual homes. We are testing it right now, and it is up and running in a couple of pilot areas, and we're far exceeding the 10:1 speeds, but so we are confident that we'll be able to meet that. And we are able to bundle it with our video services or with our voice over wireless telephone services as well. We do have to install a small wireless antenna, so we're using the last mile connection. We're going to do it wirelessly. So even though this is a wireline product and it's meant for our wireline customers, what we're going to be doing is setting up a cell antenna at your home and then beaming you dedicated bandwidth over wireless spectrum. So it will be set aside to get directly to your home at those speeds, and making sure that you're able to receive those speeds, and that dedicated service will be yours. We have to install it at the customer premise on the left, what we affectionately call the pizza box, which is a
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? Okay. Can you go back a slide, please?
Sure.
Sorry, I know we have so much time, but the last bullet or the last sub bullet, you have customers will also be have the ability to bundle DirecTV video.
Right.
So residents like in San Juan Canyon, there's a lot of folks that don't have broadband speeds
right.
or internet at all,
right.
or telephone at all.
Mm-hmm.
They have to have a direct line. I mean, some of them don't have cell phone services, what I'm referring to. So can you use DirecTV, and will this accomplish that broadband approval?
This is where, and I'll get to that when at the end for the maps, but we'll show you exactly where we're building it. But we're essentially building new wireless towers where we do not have wireless service today, and we're beaming it through a wireless antenna. It's not being done by satellite, it's done by wireless spectrum.
The only reason why is because when you said bundle it with DirecTV, I didn't know if you were going to use just a...
No. So I just say that in the sense that if you wanted to, if you're already a DirecTV customer, you can bundle that together, and then the more, in our business, the more you bundle together, the more value you receive. You have the pizza box, the antenna that would be affixed to your house. Ideally, that would be on your roof line. In this case, because it was a pilot project, it was put on a stake in someone's front yard because essentially we're not sure if they want to keep it. We didn't want to do any damage or anything permanently to their house. And then inside you have a wireless router that is hardwired to that antenna, and that's how your service will be deployed inside your house. So you can have Wi-Fi connection to your computers in your house, or you can hardwire it to that router. We're doing this by three ways. We're looking at our existing AT&T cell phone antennas, and we're upgrading them by putting the new radios and spectrum on top of those existing towers. We will be looking at existing antenna that other people may own, or our competitors may own, or the county may own, and see if we can put equipment on those existing towers, or we will go out and we'll build new towers from scratch, and then we will add the fixed wireless. Anytime that we're adding the new, or we're going to a facility that's not ours, we're essentially bringing this service to an area where we don't have wireless coverage. So it's the twofer in all of this is that in addition to taking the subsidies and building the fixed wireless service, we will also be adding an array of our mobility LTE antennas so that if you're an AT&T wireless customer, you will have better cell phone service in these areas as well. And I will show you specifically here in a few seconds. I just want to, and I'll run through these very quickly. This is an existing AT&T tower. And then if you look up at the upper right hand, that's a close-up of it. This is what we would need to do to make it ready for this new service. So if I just toggle back and forth, you can see the antennas are just a little bit bigger that we have to install. Here's another example. I've purposely picked ugly cell antennas and ones that aren't shrouded or covered up so that you can see what this looks like. I will admit these are not the most beautiful sights in the world. But you can see the existing antennas, and then again, we've added the new ones there. If I toggle back and forth, you can see the new equipment. Again, this is another one, and we've put the new radios there. Here's one of our competitors' towers. And if we add to that, we have to put a new array of equipment. So you can see that again. We have to maintain a 10-foot separation for spectrum, and then some new equipment on the ground too that you'll see there as well. So here is what this means to San Benito County. We have two sites, two existing AT&T sites that we will be upgrading, and then we'll be building 4 new cell towers in your county that will help us serve this new base of customers through this subsidy. We have identified where we would like to put those cell antennas in order to serve the most number of people. Our engineers have evaluated that, and I will show you those maps next. But I would tell you that this is not set in stone. This can be moved, this can be changed. But if we have to move a cell tower, there's a lot of things that come into play. Topography, elevation, environment, the distance and density of the eligible homes all factor into where we want to put this new tower. So even if we move a tower of 100 feet, it could significantly impact how many homes get served. So while we are able to move them, and we will move them if you don't like them where we want to put them, it will likely mean that fewer homes get served. So again, how am I doing on time here? So this is San Benito County. The yellow area that you see there is where AT&T is the local exchange carrier. So this is the area where we are the telephone company. If you build a house or start a business anywhere in that yellow area, we are obligated under law to provide a wired telephone service in that area. If you look here, and I don't know if you can see it, there's some green hashtags. Those are the census blocks, and I don't know if my pin's not going to work that. Yeah, it's not going to show that, but you can see the green areas are the areas where the subsidy will be made available. If we build there, this is where the federal government is giving us money to build to. The next slide, all this orange is the extremely high-cost area. So these are the census blocks that the FCC has determined is extremely high cost to build to. If we want to build or to serve that area, we will get credit for doing so, but we can't go back and ask for more money. And then, and this will be the one that's not in your packet, but I've got an explanation here. And if you can see here, there's some things that pop in and up, mostly at the northern part where all the green hashtags are. This is where the new cell sites are. So we have one here just south of 101. It's signified by a blue dot. That's an existing AT&T tower that we're going to upgrade. There's a half of a blue dot right on the border of, I think that's Santa Clara County, just west of 156 on the border. That is an existing AT&T tower that we'll be upgrading. And then we've highlighted the 4 areas where we want to put a new tower and those census blocks. Unfortunately, some census blocks are very small, so they may not show up, but here is one right here. And then the other 3 are all up on the top, and you can maybe see those as they pop up. There's one just west or east of 156, and there are 2 over on the far border on the left by 101. So there's a new site build by Carpenter Road, just north of 101, and a new site build west of 101, south of 129 on the Santa Cruz border. And then another new site you see, and I'm not from here, is a Pinoche Road, just west of Pinoche Road down on the south. And we think we can serve most of the homes in the green hashtag areas by building these additional towers. The other thing I would mention is there are 5 sites outside of your county that are right on the border, either in Monterey or in Santa Cruz County, that will also help serve. Our spectrum obviously doesn't pay attention to political boundaries, so it will be serving some of those homes on the border as well. So,
hold on a minute, Supervisor Munzer.
So that area in the southern part off of Highway 25, where Highway 25 is running,
yeah.
Do you have an existing tower down there, or you're going to build?
Are you talking the north?
No, the south.
Down here?
Yes.
We do not have an existing tower down there, and the only eligible area is this little spot right here. So we have not. We do not have a plan right now to build in that.
Oh, so
area.
that's not one of the places that you're going to
No,
service.
the nearest area to there will be right here, and that will serve this green area and maybe some of the dark orange.
And there's a lot of
as well.
mountains between the two parts.
There is another round of funding coming out from the FCC, and the new president has put infrastructure investment as something that's important to him. So I suspect that you will see the next round of funding at some point in time. It is in the FCC budget to do so. They just have not released that money yet on how to do that. But that would be where we might avail ourselves to build into those high-cost areas.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And the last slide, the ask here is anything that the county can do to help us reach these timelines. We actually have a very wonderful working relationship with your county. We usually get cell towers approved and reviewed in a very favorable time, so it hasn't been a problem, but just anything that you can do to streamline permitting. Again, this doesn't mean changing your rules or breaking your rules for us, but if we can come in and meet with your staff, and you can tell us, how you want the pages ordered, or what color of ink you want us to use, or how you want to see the permit applications. We will make sure that we do whatever you need and your staff needs to review those in a very quick manner. Secondly, if you have any county-owned land in any of these areas, any of those dark red areas that we built on there, or we'd love you to be our landlord if we can't find another landlord particularly. And then anything you can do to help streamline the new cell site approval process as well. And again, not asking you to change any of your rules, and you do a pretty good job of that so far, but anything that we can do to help you expedite that would be great. And then with your permission, I'm happy to answer any questions that you would like.
Questions? Supervisor Patello?
Yeah, I do have a question. And, I've lived out in San Juan Valley pretty much all my life. I'm 56 years old today, and I remember party lines. And so
I lived on one of those too.
We've come a long ways, but about a year or so ago, I had a neighbor that just couldn't stand it living out where I live. And he moved into town because the internet was just so slow out there. It's like a snail's pace. But if you never had anything other than that, it's fine with me. But we don't download movies and things like that. And so hopefully this helps cure a lot of it. But the point I'm trying to make, which is important for us to keep in mind, it's not about homes having a little bit quicker internet and things like that. This is economic development. I think if that's affecting people that want to move back into town, it's certainly affecting business and how it's conducted today. And so I think we have to have that view that we need, in order to have economic development out in the unincorporated areas, we got to have these type of services available, this infrastructure, and I'm speaking in very high support for you guys to get this implemented. And the question I have, as you do, there was concerns about a year or so ago about the phone companies eliminating wired phones. Is that still a goal of the AT&T, I guess?
Well, I would take exception. The talking point that was circulating around was that we were taking away wired phones. The reality is that people are moving away from wired phones. We've lost 80% of our business in the wired telephone business without any law, without anyone telling anyone to do things. That has already happened. And I think what the 80% of our landline business is gone. So one of the reasons why you're seeing us like Eastman Kodak. Nobody owns a Kodak phone anymore because they didn't keep up with the technology. And so that's why you see us moving. And I think the AB 2395 is what you're talking to.
Right.
And while we do not have, there's no plans to reinvigorate that piece of legislation in this session. I think what is happening is going to continue to happen, and people are going to be abandoning wireline phones for VoIP and for wireless service. What that bill attempted to do was to create some structure around it so that companies couldn't just turn this service off, but to allow some migration, similar to what the FCC did when we moved from analog to digital television. I remember when that happened, I was like, "There's no way in hell I'm buying a $4,000 digital TV. I can't afford it, and don't watch that much TV." But again, knowing that it was coming on the horizon allowed everyone to plan for it. And by the time it did happen, you were talking about a couple 100,000 people nationwide that hadn't made the change. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, but I'm still somewhat concerned about that. When you live out where Supervisor Munzer was just describing, and there's people that do live out there, your only safety net is a wired phone, because you could trace back an emergency call with the wired phone, whereas one of these you go to some CHP dispatch and they have no idea where you are, and it's just a different environment than living in town than what you have out in some of the less density areas. And if that could be solved, then I think that
as the company that owns those wire lines, I can tell you we have absolutely no interest in cutting them off or doing away with them. That's sunken investment that we've made, and sadly, a lot of people are not using that technology anymore. But while we've got it, our intention is to continue to use it. And as I said, there's not going to be any legislative action that's going to try and reinvigorate that piece of legislation this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let me open up to the public. Anyone from the public? No one? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We will now go to lunch. 1:30.